welcome to SYNCO Industries Limited. This video is intended for training the users of SYNCO ARC SPRAY system on how to set the machine and how to start the spray process. In this video, we will first show you the major components of the machine, and then we'll give you the introduction of various connecting ports, the cable connecting ports, the meters, so that you can identify all the parts on the machine. This will be followed by how to set the machine, how to make different connections between the different parts of the machine, and finally we will show you how to start the arc spray and how to spray the material. So let us begin with the introduction of the major parts of this machine. The first one is the power source of the machine. This white one is the power source. On top of this power source is the control console, the black one. This houses all the controls of the machine. The second part is the twin spool stand system. This is the stand for the twin spools, on top of which are mounted the two number spools. These spools contain the wires which has to be sprayed. These are two spools with two wires. These are the wires which will be sprayed. These wires are connected to the gun for spray, and this one is the arc spray gun. This one is the air regulator for the main air supply, which will be used for spray of the metal. This is the on-off switch for this air. This is the port at which we have to connect the hose for this air. This hose will be connected to the gun for supply of the compressed air. This is a pressure gauge which will show the air pressure which is going into the gun for spray of the metal. This is the air regulator for the supply of air for air motor. This is the on-off switch for supply of air to air motor. This is the hose which will go into the gun for feeding the air to air motor. This pressure gauge will indicate the air pressure which is going in for air motor. This switch is for supply of high velocity air to the gun for atomization. This is the hose which will feed compressed air at high velocity to the gun. This is connected to this port here, and this hose will go into the gun. This is the emergency stop. In case of any emergency, it can be just pressed and the system will stop. This is the port for connecting the remote control to the control panel. The remote control is also shown above. This is the input supply to the control console, which is coming from the power source at the bottom. Now coming to the different parts on the power source, this one is the voltmeter, which will show the voltage being fed to the gun for arcing. This is a selector switch for selecting the voltage. This is a coarse selection switch in which you can select the voltage in the steps of 3.5 volts. These are indicator lamp for the three phases RYB. This is the ammeter which will show the current which is used for arcing. This is again a selector switch for voltage, but this is a fine selection in which we can select the voltage in the steps of 1.5 volts. This is the connection for feeding the supply to the control console. This is the main power on-off switch. These are the terminals, positive and negative, which will feed the power to the gun. The cables are connected at these terminals. This is the fuse for the main transformer. This is the fuse for the cooling fan. This is the terminal box for connecting the input main power supply. Now let us identify and understand the various ports on the arc spray gun itself. These are the two ports for connecting the wires to the spring. These are the two levers for controlling the roller pressure when the wire is inserted into the arc spray. These are the two power supply cables, one positive and another negative, which have come from the main power source and connected in the arc spray gun. This is the hose for high velocity air, which has again come from the control console and connected in the gun. This is the hose for main air supply for spray. This lever is for starting the spray. This has to be pressed for starting the spray. This hose is feeding compressed air to the air motor. For further reference, these parts on the various parts of machine, the different ports have been listed on the slides also, where they can be identified by their respective part number. Having understood the different parts of the machine, now let us start with the setting of the machine so that it can be prepared for spraying. First of all, the wire spools should be mounted on the stand. Here they are already mounted, but in practice you have to mount them when you are setting the machine. Next is mount the gun on its stand. Here also it is already mounted, but in practice it should be mounted now. First, connect the hose feeding the main air supply to the gun at this pole. Connect the hose for high velocity air. Connect the hose for feeding compressed air to the air motor. Connect the power cables at the respective terminals. Connect the cable of the remote control at this pole. While doing all these, the main compressed air supply and the main power supply should remain off. Here in this view, you can see all the cables and the hoses have been connected to the spray gun at their respective ports and terminals. Now this gun is ready to spray the metal. Now we will put on the power. You can see all the phases are now on. The compressed air has also been connected and the valve has been put on. Now we are ready for spraying. So we have to select the appropriate voltage and the air pressure for starting the spray. The voltage has to be selected by this switch for coarse selection and this switch for fine selection. The value of the voltage will depend on the type of the wire, material of the wire and the diameter of the wire. In present case for this demo, we are using a 1.6 mm zinc wire and we have selected 30 volts. Now let us start the actual spray process. The first step is that we have put on the power from the main switch. The next step is we will put on the main air. Now we are putting on the high velocity air also and the air for the air motor. Now this is the remote control switch. As we put on this switch, the actual spray will start.